nih, agak terlambat sedikit, but don't worry, we should start very soon. Today we will learn about non-ferrous materials or non-ferrous alloys. So I will share the slide. You can get the slide in Classroom. I already shared them. Share it, I mean. It will be very brief introduction to the topic. In detail, it will be learned in specific lecture. We call it logam industri ya, paduan logam industri ya. It's kind of mata kuliah pilihan ya, nanti mata kuliah pilihan kalau mau lebih detail. Anyway, we start with this. Okay, I believe that you can see already the screen. Here we will learn about these alloys, which is basically what we call non-ferrous. We call a non-ferrous. Okay, so non-ferrous alloy means that there is no Fa. Okay, non-ferrous means no iron. We are learn that this kind of we already learned. We learn about steel already. We have already about the cast iron. And for example, also stainless steel last week. So what we learned today is that there is also another kind of metals or alloys that we can use in many engineering applications that's not based on iron. So that's why we call it non-ferrous. So it's non-ferrous alloy. So non-ferrous alloy, there are several. Okay, there are several. There are of course any other than irons. We call it non-ferrous. So today we'll talk a little bit. It's not quite that deep because there are so many things that we should learn. But this is just a basic understanding about the aluminum alloys and also magnesium. Then I'm not sure if we go to copper or nickel or titaniums. It could be your assignment, but let's see how the time goes. Let's see a little bit why we are talking this topic anyways. Basically, we are interested in the physical properties like this density. We call physical properties. So this is physics ya. Jadi kita menyebutnya sifat fisika, physical. And then for many times for metals one also for metallurgy one we are talking a lot about mechanical properties. So mechanical properties, and there are many of mechanical properties that we are discussing. For example, strength is the most important things that we learn. There are also ductility. There are also toughness, creep resistance, and other mechanical properties. But tensile strength actually things that people are talking a lot about that. And then also in designing something, we are need to actually think about we call it specific strength. So yeah, which means that divide the strength with the density. Okay, then you get some kind of specific strength. How much weight or how much strength you get per weight. Okay. Then also in terms of cost, because at the end, if you design something and then the cost is not achievable by most of customer, then it is difficult to be market or difficult to realize a sustained product. So cost it's very important for many peoples, but there are some people that don't think that cost is important. But for many engineering application, 99% cost is very important variables to decide which material basically can be applied or can be used in our design. So let's see the very important things about this density in unit that we already aware of. This is another unit basically. It's pounds per square volume. Okay, but this is the density, so it's per volume of something. So you see that we have a steel. Basically, this will be different. The stainless steel will differ a little bit compared to just low carbon steel. But in many cases, it's about 7 to 8. So in this case, it is average that steel have density about 7 to 8.7. The number is quite a good number, so you can remember easily this number, 287. And then if we compare to aluminium, for example, we know a lot about aluminium in many applications in your bike, in your motorbike, and many places we use a lot about aluminium or using aluminium. There are 2.7, which means that it's about 1/4. So it's about maybe setengahnya lebih ya. 1/2 is not 4. So 2.7, which means that it's about 3. So if we have 8, mean that 2.5 times or 2.5 less than what still have. And then there are also another important class of low density, for example, magnesium. So if you use now in your laptop, for example, if you have Apple laptop, Mac, then you have aluminum casing, or if you have also another type of iPhone, there are aluminum case. They'll be very light and strong. But there are also in the future, you will use magnesium instead of aluminum to make it lighter. So aluminum is also heavily used in automotive, for example, for wheel. They also now interest using magnesium for wheels because there is lighter. Lighter mean going very fast with efficient fuel. So in the future, when we are talking about automobile industry, they are going into more sophisticated alloys, which is aluminum and magnesium. And then because of strength, they are also very interested to use titanium in structural. Even though the density is only half of the steel, but the strength is actually quite high. This is I think this is the pure titanium, and then they have possibility to develop into very high titanium. Therefore, titanium is mostly used for aerospace and aero application, like aeroplanes, and then because the strength, and then also aluminum is heavily used in aeroplane industry. But you see there are also another important thing later on with this melting point. How other than density, there are also, we call it melting temperature. How this alloy actually resists heat. And then in this case, usually nickel is mostly used for application require high temperature application. So this is for high temperature application. Again, this is some. They're also, rather than structural, they're also now going very much interest on the use of this alloy for storage energy, which means battery. You should that is. And in this case, lead, copper, and also zinc. Also, there are a lot of alloys that can be used to store energy. And then this is basically a non-structural application. So what we are talking structural, it's mostly about mechanical. And then there are also non-structural application, which is in energy, usually used for storing energy. Okay, this is a short introduction into the topic, and then we can see in detail. There is additional additional properties that we are interested in. We already talk about density now, and then there are also some important thing as I mentioned before. This is about the melting point. So this is another important things that we are talking. As you see that as the melting point of titanium is very high, they are usually used for aerospace application because they can resist very high temperature during the collision with the particle in the atmosphere when you are using very um, uh, high speed vehicles or high speed aeroplanes. So this is important. There's also important. We call it resistivity. Means that and then this is about how the material can conduct electricity. See, so you see that the copper is actually very low resistivity, which means that it can conduct electron very good. So it is electron conductor. So which means that a lot of cable now there are internet industry, there are internet of thing industry. There needs a lot of thing actually to make it a reality using developing electronic sensor and things like that. You need a cable, right? And then because this is electron conductor, so it's mean that a lot of things use copper. And the things that if you are investor now, because the growing of electronic industry, some people believe that the price of copper will be like 500% increase within 10 years. So if you have money, you can buy copper. Then that's about, there's no investment growing that fast. Of course, material is one way to invest on. Usually people are thinking about gold or silver to invest, but now copper can be think as one of a future material because many things actually made of copper. So actually it's predicted in 2030 that will be going like 500%. So it's fivefold on price, which means if you buy now with like 1 million, so in the 10 years you have 5 million. So that's a quite good investment because in year you have like 50% increase. Your deposit will about 10%. So if you have 50%, then it is very good enough. Also, if you are making business, 25%, 30% is already good. 50% is very high. So that's other thing, yeah. Rather than talking about material, you need to think about business and things like that. Okay. Let's go into detail of aluminium. So big aluminium actually made from alumina. Okay, they're made of alumina. So alumina is made from bauxite. Bauxite is kind of this thing with some water and also something else. Okay, and also this thing is many also bridge. So it's not alumina. We call it this alumina. We call this aluminium. Okay, if it is with oxygen, we call it alumina. Okay, this is aluminium, aluminium, and this is alumina. So you make aluminium from alumina. Okay, but alumina is not free. It is not you can find in earth crust, something that you need to mine. So you need to mine it from bauxite. Okay, so it's called bauxite. There are so many bauxite in Indonesia, especially in Sumatra and Kalimantan. You can find there are a lot of bauxite, but the industry to refine bauxite to alumina is not many. And if you know or heard about Inalum, is basically making alumina to aluminium. So it's making alumina from aluminium. So the Inalum company is basically making aluminium from alumina. Okay. So because you need electricity a lot, so it's mean that usually it's made from a place where hydropower electric is very high. So that's why Inalum is plant is actually located in very specific location where the electricity is actually high and cheap. Okay, so usually what hydropower electricity is a metaphor, but there are not so many industry in Indonesia making this. So what Inalum does is they are imported this. Some, okay, imported this. So they imported from where? From Japan. So alumina is imported from Japan. So where does Japanese get the bauxite? It's actually from Indonesia. So this is a pity, right? So they got bauxite from Indonesia. We imported it, and then so some value is actually we send some money to Japanese people. Yeah. In addition of buying their motorcycle or and car, we also sending them money. Yeah, there are many things that we can do like that. So, and then aluminum is yeah, we can use it in our automotive industry and many industry actually. Sorry, this thing, yeah, it's not this. So we can use in our automotive industry and any other structural application. Okay, yeah. So this thing. Okay, you can get the big picture now. There are process, we call it a whole-headed process. As I mentioned before, that you need a lot of electricity. That's why we call it because this is one process that's now it is mature, means that the process actually industrial scale. There are also already economics mean that you get a profit from process. So it's called electrolytic means that you actually electrolyze them. So it means that you're giving an electron to actually reduce the alumina and become aluminium. So this is we call electrolytic process, which means you need a lot of electron, which means you need a lot of electricity to process to process with this making of aluminium. This name of a person who patented the technology. Basically, in the history of aluminium, in the old time, in many years ago, actually aluminium price is actually similar with the gold price. This is quite surprising, right? Now aluminium is very cheap. Why? Because the process to refine alumina uh, is become cheaper and cheaper. So aluminum prices become industrial standard of alloys. It's not like a gold. So aluminum price was very high because of the process. If you refine the process, then the price become cheaper by now. So there are also very uh, important things to think about the destination of tempering. So tempering means heat treatment process by which we are heat treated. So that this we call it a tempering. As you remember from the steel, it's quite a similar word to use in this process, which means this tempering. So you hold alloys or component in specific temperature and you do cooling the process. So this temper destination is very important for aluminium because aluminium got or get their strength or their mechanical properties from the heat treatment. So if you, I will explain later on. If you are not heat treated aluminium, then the mechanical property is not that good. So that's why you need heat treatment. So because all aluminium is actually heat treated, so it is important to actually remember or notice or keep in your mind that the tempering destination is very important for aluminium. Okay. Up to now, if you have any question, please ask. So basically, this process. So this process actually using salt. Using salt. So you mix alumina with some kind of salt because salt is have high conductivity. So you can transfer electron from this bath electron here you can give the electron here. So basically, this is the process, and then this is you connect with the positive polarization, and then this is with negative polarization. So, and they are using carbon because carbon is basically stable in this salt. So this is basically difficult to invent, but now it is quite easy to see, right? But at the time, that's challenging to find material that actually stable when you are using a salt. Salt is something like sodium and things like that. So, and then if you are talking about specific reaction, alumina will react with the carbon, and then they will produce aluminum, and then CO2, and oxygen, oxidized carbon, and the anode producing CO2 gas. And so you actually remove carbon anode, yeah, for many times. So you can change the carbon anodes. That's a little bit about how the process goes. And now we are talking about the mechanical properties. As I mentioned before, that if you have pure aluminum, say that there are just refined from alumina, you see that the tensile strength is quite low. Yeah, the yield strength is quite low. It's only 6,500 psi, but they are very ductile. This is typical pure system or pure metals, that they are very ductile. But because of they are very ductile and the tensile strength is quite low. So this is pure aluminum. But if you have commercially pure aluminum, something that actually not very pure, like 99%, 1% can be anything, silica, oxygen, any other elements that actually impure, actually difficult to remove from the process, and you have about 1300. So pure aluminum is less stronger than just commercial pure aluminum. Okay, so it's a similar way we are talking about gold. If you have a pure gold or 24 karat gold, they will be very ductile. But if you have very not 24, 18 for example, and then the strength is quite high. So if you put any other solid solution, or for example, later on we discuss about, for example, we can put another element, okay, like copper, silicon, or magnesium, then the strength will increase to 600,000. So which means that solid solution strengthening alloy increase. And then in some many cases, you can also increase the strength with cold work. Just deform them in cold condition. For example, with drawing or rolling, any other process at cold, mean room temperatures, then you can have increase on the strength. And then later on, if we are talking about further heat treatment technology, like adding some dispersion into the microstructure, or you egg hardening the microstructure, we discuss about this later on, you will increase the strength. So basically, the way that aluminum can be used in structural application is depend on the how we heat treated or we alloy it or we strengthen the aluminum. Okay, so if you egg hardening alloy, then you can have this number, which is useful for aerospace aeroplane application or another application. Okay, so let's see. About the steel. Yeah, it's about 200,000. Yeah, 200,000. So this is about, it's still less than steel. So then we need to a little bit recognize the destination. If you remember about the steel, you have an IC system. We also have an IC system for aluminum, and then it is quite different. If we are talking about aluminium, and there is also number here, but it's quite different, right? There's number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So the first digit is actually talking about the main alloying elements. If you have 1, which means that they are pure alloy, pure aluminum. If you have 2, which means that it will always copper inside. If you have 3, it is manganese inside. If you have 4, there will be silicon and or manganese silicon. 5 will be manganese. 6 will be manganese silicon. In some cases, there are overlap a little bit with the 4, 6, and then with the zinc, you have 7. This is mainly if you have lithium, which is very light, you have 8, and other than that, you give number 9. So this is industrial specific consensus. Yeah, we can say that. So this agreement between the industry and the maker of aluminium to give an destination to their aluminium product. This is from not casting product. So you have a casting product, then the numbering is quite quite the same, but they're a little bit different. So that's how aluminium actually get their destination or their names. I mean, this is product name, right? Like I understand that. We will let on. And then, in addition of this destination, this is from. Actually, we can talk about product marking. Okay, this. So if you have a manufacturer of aluminium, then they should make their product based on this, okay, based on this name. So, and then therefore the buyer or customer in, for example, in automotive industry can recognize what they buy and what is inside their aluminium. I mean, what is the composition of the aluminium product. So in addition of the chemical composition, as I mentioned before, that all aluminium product is basically made with specific treatment. So there are chemical composition. As we are, this should be plus the heat treatment process. Heat treatment or treatment. Okay, treatment mean, for example, rolling or forging or any other example drawing, or is if you just draw them. So I also remember that the heat treatment process including annealing. Okay, so this thing. So if you it just come out from the plant or from the manufacturer, just it is, then the number is what F. So for example, you have 1,000 something aluminium, then this is F, which means that this is as fabricated. So it's as it is, okay, as it is, as products produced without any treatment. That's what is number F means behind the chemical composition standard. Okay, so if it is O mean anneal, that's not difficult. Then H, which mean cold work, so which means that you're cold working, and the number is just yeah, the number just amount of cold work and straightening. So yeah, it's just amount. It means that will put a number for the strength Yeah, and then they will be classified based on the strength that's coming out from the cold road. And then for W, it is solution treated, and T is egg hardened. So example, you have 7 0 7 0, for example. This is an aeroplane application aluminium. Then this is will be like T7, which means that it is solution treated and stabilized by over aging. So it means that we will see later on what this means. But this is how the way we can recognize the aluminum product based on the chemical composition, which is a numbering system, and then based on the treatment after some treatment. Okay, depend on the treatment, you can put a marking based on this treatment. So this is some example. As you remember from the phase diagram, you can have heat treated and non-heat treated alloy. Okay, what is different? You should remember that some alloy can make a solid solution, right? Solid solution. That's most of, but there's not all can have precipitation. So if you have a curve like in steel, like that, see that. If you have this line, remember, if you have this line, which means that this is, what line is this? Remember that? Anyone? What line is this? Forgot? This is sulfur line, okay? Remember that. If you have a sulfur line, which means that if you have a single phase, example here, alpha, and you go down here, you will form beta or any other precipitate, right? If you have this line, then you can heat treat it. But if you don't have this line, then you are not heat treated. Let's see the phase diagram of this. And then there are numbers here, right? Example 6061. 61 is basically not always composition, right? It's not always 32. It's not. Yeah, it's not always. It just define the product. Okay? The product number. It's not chemical composition. It's not telling you a number of like how much silicon or thing like that. It just. But the number in front of it, it'll be telling you about what is the chemical composition. Example, 20 will be contains copper, 40 will be silicon, 60 will be manganese silicon, 70 will be some zinc and some manganese. Okay, but the two number behind it is just kind of marking based on the agreement between the standard. So between the company is making based on the chemical composition that state in the standard, something like that. It's not like in the steel. And then see here, we have aluminum and magnesium phase diagram. This is aluminum and magnesium. So how much magnesium you can add in aluminum? Anyone? How much? Anyone? Can you try? You are all silent at your home.
Maybe 15%, sir.
Yeah, please. How much?
15%.
50.
Yeah.
Yeah, It's 14.9, yeah. So magnesium you can add is about 14.9. Okay, and you have, yeah, you're correct. So you have a sulfose line here, and of course, if you have alpha here, and you have beta here, which means that if you cool down from this position, going to that, so the microstructure will be look like that. Yeah. So you have here alpha, and you have here alpha and beta. Okay. Usually alpha here and beta is somewhere here. Okay, in the grain. But with manufacturing process, you can also modify this as become some precipitate here. So you have alpha, and some beta is actually precipitate here. So this is the how the aluminum get their strength, because this is precipitate of beta, and then we call it precipitation hardening. Or pH hardening, where we have precipitation hardening. So in addition of only putting magnesium into aluminum, we call it here as a solid solution. And this position you have a solid solution plus precipitation hardening, okay? Because you form precipitate because of the process. Remember this, so I will not go into detail because you already know it in some. And then it's also possible to make precipitate more finer. So precipitate that is formed can be engineered, bisa direkayasa ya, can be engineered with a heat treatment. This engineering process in heat treatment, sometimes it is called edge hardening. Here in the image, it is on the left. In the right image is in the right. It's the same thing, okay? Because now it's aluminum, okay? So from the graph, maybe someone can tell me how much copper you can add. You have 100 aluminum. Sorry, how much copper you can add? Yeah, here.
Maybe about 5%.
How much? About 6%, right? Yeah. Yeah, betul. So so you have this line basically. This line. So it's not this line because it is cutted here. So it's somewhere there. That's why it is cutted here. So it's not so up. But basically, if you imagine a free lay, I mean, just make it easy. There will be some line like that. So this is a sulfose line, right? This is sulfose line, which means that if you have sulfose line, it means that you have single phase of something, and then it is here written K. You can write beta or alpha. This, as soon as this is a Greek letter, this tell you that it is a solid solution, right? So if you have a solid solution here, there, which means a single phase with some copper inside it. Remember what the solid solution is? If you have aluminum, something like that. And there will be a random copper actually there. Okay, can be here, it can be here, it can be there. So it will be some kind of random some random position of atom. I don't know which one I use, red or I think this one. Okay. So this basically random copper. See, this is random position. So if you quench them, they will be feel like trap, right? there will be like trap condition. So it's not slowing, not slow cool, example, but just very fast. If you draw, this is actually this temperature. So you quench very fast, okay, into room temperature or into low temperature, and you heat it up again, something like that. That's why we call it aging. Actually, this is also tempering, right? Some people call it temper hardening. Some people using aging hardening. Aging means you hold for a long time, yeah, on that temperatures. That's why you call aging, aging, yeah, aging atau aging bahasa Indonesia apa ya? Bahasa Indonesia penuaan, tapi it's not correct word to use maybe, but we call it aging atau heat treatment because of time. So the timing is quite long. It's not in a second or minutes. It can be hours. And then if you do that like that, and you have a very good precipitate distributed over the microstructure. You see this dot here. Please see this. See this dot inside the microstructure is it is precipitated. So if you have this thing, which means that if you have precipitated inside microstructure, what you have is that your dislocation movement will be hindered. You know, remember that dislocation is hindered by the precipitate. This is a story about the precipitation hardening. So basically, you can make this thing in aluminium. So that's why engineered heat treatment for aluminium is actually egg hardening process. So if you slow cool it instead of doing what I have told you in the process of egg hardening, then you have something like that. Okay, you have second phase here as just very big lump of particle in the grain boundary, which is not add up into the strength. So slow cooling is not a good process for the aluminium. Instead of doing the slow cooling, you go fast and you go heat it again. This is what we call egg hardening process. You get this point? This is very important. Means that in any language, if you are in any occasion, if you are talking about aluminum alloys and titanium alloys, then you are always talking about precipitation hardening process. That this is the birth of the process. Okay, you learn it already in Metal 1, but this is to make it emphasize that this is very important things that you should know. And something that you should know, usually this part of capaian pembelajaran, right? If it is part of capaian pembelajaran, which means that you'll examine with this kind of question. Examination will be come out somewhere. Yeah, so you should remember that. Any question? This detail on it. I wait for you to think. Okay, please don't be silent. If you have any question, just ask. Okay.
Excuse me, sir.
Yeah, please.
Can I see the previous slide? Why the precipitation is in the grain boundary when so cooled, but in the C, in the picture C, it on the middle, sir.
Yeah, that's a good question. We can come back to the basic. If you have slow cooled, it means you start the process here already, right? You see my dot here, which means that it is at high temperature here. Yeah, you see my line, right? Let's make a different color here. You see this line, the green one, okay? which means this is high temperature, right? About 500. What does it mean, high temperature? Which means that your atom will be freely move. In this case, copper, they have high energy to move. If they have energy to move, which means that they can go very far, right? They can go very far, which means they can go to the grain boundary at high temperature. But if you cool down here, they will be trapped inside the phase. They are trapped in the middle of the position here. And if you heat it up, not high enough, in this case 200, what it mean? What it mean that there only small energy they can have to travel. It means that you have less money now. Okay? If it is you have a lot of money, then you go to United States, to Europe. Okay, so which means the grain boundary is very far position, right? Compared to, but if you have less energy, less money, you can go just close to your place. Okay, that's why they are formed here. This is the energy that's enough for them to form. It is in the middle of the microstructure, because just energy is less energy needed rather than forming in the grain boundary, right? If you wait long enough, this small will be grow like that. Okay, but still in the middle. Why? Because there's already form in the middle. It means that nucleation is there in the middle. Okay, so that's why it's still there, because the nucleation is stuck in the middle, because the less energy is needed when you form in this situation, which means at lower temperature. So it's all about the diffusion process, as you remember for metal one. When you have a high temperature process, then you have energy or enough energy to travel to go to the grain boundary. But if not, then just enough energy to form in the middle of the phase, or in the middle of the microstructure here. Okay. So that's the reason. Of course, you can have mathematical equation, but it's not the way to go in this situation. Just understand the basic of it. So if you go a little bit high temperature, what does it mean? It means that you can achieve a higher particle size on that. So it's from here, somewhere here. So you have a high particles. And if it is something like that, the cooling, and then of course we'll have something like that. So it's not work like precipitation hardening. It's not X hardening, it's just an annealing process. So that's why in aluminum process, there will be not the way to go with only annealing, usually with egg hardening process, something like that. Okay. I think that's explained. What do you think?
I think it's very clear, sir. Thank you.
Okay.
Sir, I want to ask something, sir.
Okay, please.
I see there is a sum line from X to A and then X to D. But is there any possibility to form X directly to B or to C? Like maybe we form ferrite to bainite or fine pellet or fine coarse pellet gitu, sir. Maybe we reduce the cooling rate, sir, maybe, or is it or there is no possibility to form X directly to B or D, sir, C, sir.
Well, that's a good question. Remember that it works only when you have something like this. Okay, so you have solid sulfus line like this. Let's go. Okay, you have this line. So if you don't have this line, then it doesn't work. For steel, for example, it's very small area that you have this in steel. You remember this phase diagram of steel is something like that. Okay. Yeah, something like this. Yeah, but this thing is very narrow, right? It's very narrow, so that's why it's not really work for steel. And then this is very important to remember that it is only work if you have this sulfus line, which means that there is a possibility to form saturated microstructure, which means that something is trapped inside the microstructure, inside the crystal, and then if you have this solvus, then you have precipitation hardening process. If not, then it's not possible. So that's why some aluminum is only solid solution treated. Okay, there's no precipitation, as you remember this thing. So this is non-hydrateable. Why it is non-hydrateable? Because you don't have this this solvus line. You don't have this. It's not all the alloying element is actually have that. So if you have this already in mind, okay, can I go from X to B, for example, here, go directly here? No, it's not possible, which means that you have a cooling process like that, which means just annealing. So if you have this process and what you have is something like in D, you have second phase, it is on the grain boundary, it's not in the middle of the phase. So it's then you don't have this dislocation hinder process, because we need something else very small enough inside, right? It can be imagined like that. Okay, you have mungkin ini ya, kalian punya satu perumahan gitu ya, pingin laju kendaraan atau dislokasi di dalam perumahan itu lambat, ya kan? Polisi tidurnya cuma ada di gerbang satu aja, which is grain boundary, kan gitu. Kan nggak mungkin, tetap aja dalam perumahan orang akan cepat banter-banter sepeda motornya ya. Caranya gimana? Caranya bikin polisi tidur itu kecil-kecil di depan rumah-rumah gitu kan ya. Jadi mereka nggak mungkin bisa cepat gitu kan ya. Jadi lambat kan, ya kan? Jadi gitu analoginya. So rather than making a very big particle in the grain boundary, you have to make it very small within the microstructure. Within it means that they are inside. So you have like B. Exactly, that's B microstructure is something you need. But this is need prerequisite, right? You need to add alloys like copper that have solid solvus line. This is prerequisite. Apa ya, syaratnya harus ada solvus line. Kalau nggak bisa. Ya. Jadi syaratnya harus punya solvus line seperti ini ya. Kalau enggak, ya enggak bisa. Magnesium bisa, ya kan? Karena seperti ini bentuknya. Karena ada ini kan, solvus line. Solvus line itu telling you batas kelarutan dari suatu elemen ke dalam elemen lain kan gitu. Nah, kalau ada seperti ini bisa di precipitation hardening. Kalau enggak, it's not work. So jawabannya adalah tidak bisa. Kalau E ke B, E ke C dan mendapatkan sifat mekanik yang diinginkan. Okay. Ya tentu bisa ke X dan B, X ke C langsung, but you don't get what you need, which is X hardening aluminum. That's answer your question, or any other?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
That's clear, right? I think everybody now is clear enough with this. I hope you follow this because it is the heart atau istilahnya kelas ini hari ini itu ya diskusi ini gitu ya. Jadi jangan sampai nggak ngerti ya. Nah, kalau yang lain-lain tadi masalah yang apa ini kan you can get it in the internet, right? You can search on in the Google, you can find the properties, you can read a lot of book about it. But the principal working condition of the how the aluminium is engineered, it is actually in one and these two slides, basically this thing. So if you remember this, I will guarantee that you understand why we can use aluminium and how we can use it, and how they generate their strength. That's this is the question. So you can choose which aluminium you can use, which alloying element that inside the aluminium. Okay, that's for example copper or magnesium, depend on what the application is. Okay, that's actually just repeated from the previous slide. You see that this is if you have this in equilibrium condition like that, you have an annealed condition of aluminum, right? Something like that. You have this is phase. This phase is this here is written K, and then this is theta. So the here is theta. Why call it theta? This is can be solid solution, can be not. Yeah, and this is a single phase solid solution. And then to make it like that, you need to redistribute this, right? You need to dissolve. Okay, you need to dissolve basically, yeah, to dissolve this theta. So to make it the dissolve of that, you need to heat treat it the microstructure here. You need to heat it here. That's why this process we call it solution treatment, because we need to dissolve the second phase into a single phase. So this is from a two-phase alloy into single phase here in the alloy. So whenever you have a solution treatment process, which means that you make two phases into single phase. This is basically in practice we do that, and then you wait until all the second phase is dissolved. Oke, jadi semua fasa yang kedua dalam hal ini adalah theta itu totally dissolve and become a single phase. And then here, of course, if you draw it, you have single phase, something like that. Okay, singles. And then after that, you have 100% something like that. And then you quench that. Then you have a trapping situation. What the microstructure here is actually a single phase also, but some saturated situation. Basically, the copper inside the aluminum, if you remember the drawing here, we have a copper here inside aluminum. They want to go out, actually. That's why we call it saturated. They want to go out. There are a lot of energy actually there. Just they cannot because there is no temperature enough to diffuse the copper. So if you heat it up a little bit, going like that, and you wait for some time, there's some copper will go out to form with another copper to form a second phase here. The black dot inside the microstructure. This is precipitate. Precipitate of delta precipitate. Okay, that's you have the microstructure now. That's why we call it this precipitation hardening. So you just repeated myself from the previous slide. Let's make it more clear to you how this process is occur and how we can engineer aluminum become usable aluminum alloy with a very high strength. Okay. I think for example, you can actually work for yourself because it's quite easy, just calculating and then you remember it from the metal one. So a steel cable, let's just discuss about strength to weight ratio in design, which means that even you have strong steel, then the weight of your structure is actually less if you use aluminum. That's the story about the example one. It's from book, so that's why 13.1 is basically discussing about how is your design when you choose aluminum. Okay, and then this is the thing. Okay, a little bit about the application before we goes further with the thing. Let's see that if you have application, it's not require please wait a moment, okay? Oke, kita lanjutkan. So if you see this, some application, if you don't need really high strength, okay, you don't need really high strength alloys, yeah. Then, for example, what is this? For example, in aluminum, you know that there are food. Let's see, yeah. For example, for your beverage, ini kayak ini ya, kaleng Coca-Cola gitu ya. Terus kemudian for a marine component, where you need light but you don't need quite strong things, you can use just non-heteratable. Okay, you just need non-heteratable. But if you use it for aircraft skin, body, aircraft body, aircraft frame, then you need strong enough. Yeah, so that's why you need heteratable alloys, rough alloy. And then if you using for engine, for example, like aluminum silicon engine, you use this application. This is for housing things, and then you use casting alloys with some ability to solid solution treated. Okay, but it's not. So it's actually based on what you need. If you don't need the strength, for example, for can, beverage can, Coca-Cola cans, then any other applications not really need the strong properties, and you use this. And then if you use for aircraft, of course, you need to have heatable alloys. Okay, and this is actually properties that you can select to talk about your design. You see that this basically you can see, you can read also yourself. I think that's not, you can get there. And then this is also very important that you remember. This is a liquid hydrogen fuel. Hydrogen is used for space shuttle. If you read the news or you watch YouTube, there are no competition between Amazon bosses, Jeff Bezos, and also some very rich person like Elon Musk. They have all a space industry. Okay, they are thinking also some Virgin Air founder, Virgin Air. They are also called Galactic Space. So these three peoples actually in race to go to the space for offering travel to the space for the common people to go. Because in the previous, there are only astronauts can go to the space, but in the future, maybe in 2025, everybody can go there as soon as they have money, right? And then some of the fuel that used for the space application is hydrogen. And then because hydrogen is need to be stored in some kind of efficient way, you need to liquefy them. And this is very cold. And this cold is about 2,503 degrees Celsius. It's not -1, 5, 10, but 253 degrees Celsius, which means it's very cold. So because it's very cold, you need to have tank that doesn't have brittle and ductile transition. You remember there's a big ductile brittle transition for the BCC alloy, like steel. Remember that steel has a brittle to ductile transition because they have a body-centered cubic structure. But aluminum have a FCC structure for aluminum. So aluminum doesn't have this ductile to brittle transition. So what does it mean? It means they can be used in very low temperature application. So if you are thinking to make an application for very cold application, then aluminum is very good choice because they doesn't have this transition. So it means that they're always ductile all the time. That's why it's used for aeroplane, right? If you remember from Metal One, why we use aluminum in aeroplane. In addition of the strength, And light, they also doesn't have transition to brittle. If you have steel, then it's broken like a glass in the above atmosphere. So then the most aluminum alloys is this alloys basically, but that's the idea. So this aluminum is have a competitive advantage, compared to this. So I think that's all for today. We can continue next week with the magnesium and things. You can read the example and think a little bit, or you read the news about aluminum, and next week we can bring up to the discussion if you like. So then that's. I am thinking of make someone of, I don't know. How about the laboratory? Do you have a laboratory work? If you have laboratory work, then we don't need additional homework. If you don't, you have practical.
Yes, sir. We have a
Yes, sir.
practical.
Okay, then when it is will be done.
It will be done. It's still in progress, sir. We will start with test in this week, and we will start the practical next week.
Okay,
And
but the laboratory will be online, right? Not in person. It means online, which means that it will be conducted in the time like this, or it is separated time.
At a time like this, sir.
Okay, so then you need sometimes to do that. So it means that I am not give you any additional homework. So just work in your laboratory work, and then it will be used for homework assessment. So maksudnya ini nanti dimasukkan ke nilai sebagai pengganti nilai homework ya. Dan tidak perlu homework lagi. Sudah punya kuis kemarin, sudah punya tugas sebelumnya, jadi ada 2, tinggal 1 lagi nanti di evaluasi akhir semester. Okay. And then for the remaining topic, still on the non-ferrous alloys, and then probably on the non-destructive testing. So I think that the 2 that remaining is not very high. We are enough time to do that. Do you have any question because for this? I think that's quite not very challenging. I mean, that's easy, right, to follow aluminum. Why you use aluminum? That's how you get the idea about how the aluminum can be strengthened, and then like that. Okay, for the research, I think there are a lot of possibility that you can work also in aluminum alloys in the future, and also some research also. I think maybe Pak Fahmi or also some other lecturer also work on this aluminum for application like biomedical application or other things. Or magnesium also very useful for that, but we will discuss this next time. If you have any question from today class or from previous class, you can free to ask. Just discuss before we ended the session.
excuse me, sir. I want to ask
Yeah.
something.
Yes.
About edge hardening, sir.
Yeah.
I saw that there is a level of de-etching here. I just want to ask about, is there any regulation to set the temperature of etching, sir? And what the effect for the microstructure?
Basically, it is not regulation. It is kind of best practice and standard. And the temperature is basically not really disclosed because all the company actually have their patent, right? Jadi kita punya paten setiap industri. Patennya biasanya terlindungi oleh paten itu sendiri, sehingga perusahaan biasanya tidak mendisclose berapa temperatur yang mereka pakai untuk melakukan egg hardening dan berapa waktu yang mereka butuhkan. Tetapi informasi seperti ini open di literatur, meskipun tidak sama persis. Jadi misalnya berapa dia 200, apakah 215, apakah 30 itu enggak dibuka gitu, karena kan semua punya trademark patennya ya. Jadi punya ini, mereka melakukan research and development. Jadi standarnya ada nggak? Nggak ada. Best practice ada, maksudnya tahu ya, standar itu sesuatu yang sudah dibakukan dan orang lain harus melakukan sesuai standar itu. Kalau best practice itu adalah proses terbaik untuk mendapatkan hal yang diinginkan. Jadi misalnya kayak saya ingin mendapatkan ini propertinya terbaik, misalnya berapa sih treatmentnya? Best practice-nya itu ada di literatur dan mungkin beberapa orang membuka datanya gitu ya. Tetapi untuk manufacturing misalnya kayak kita bicara apa ya? Airbus atau Boeing gitu ya. Frame-nya mereka itu berapa treatmentnya? Kita tidak pernah tahu karena tidak membuka data itu gitu. Jadi gitu Sultan. Jadi tidak ada standar atau aturan gitu ya, tapi ada standar yang mengatakan seperti ini gitu ya. Jadi dia T7 itu berarti solution treatment and stabilization by overaging. Tetapi berapa? Nah, itu kan tidak ada angkanya. Nah, memang ada best practice-nya gitu ya. Jadi ini sebaiknya temperaturnya sekian, waktunya sekian. Jadi misalnya temperaturnya 200, waktunya 5 jam. Tetapi produk-produk yang bagus yang misalnya dipakai untuk aerospace itu ada nggak datanya? Tidak ada karena perusahaan nggak mendisclose itu. Tetapi kita bisa cari sebenarnya di literatur, di paper gitu-gitu. Jadi seperti itu sih. That's the way how it goes. So there is a standard, but it's not exact how they regulate that. There's no regulation, just standard. Okay, and then there is also exact number, but it's not kind of very disclosed information from the company that make aluminum lush. So that's I think the short answer, Sultan.
Thank you very much, sir.
Okay. So if you would like to make a company, for example, specialized on the frame of electric vehicles, this kind of company is not exist in Indonesia. You see that the innovation of electric scooter, like Gogoro, for example, you know, that the Taiwanese-based company working on, or Tesla, they actually work a lot in the chassis and the structure of the alloys made of aluminum. And this is very important because you need strength, you need a toughness, you need rigidity or stiffness, you need also robustness of the design. So basically, there is opportunity to work on this kind of company. If you so you need specific technology to design this scooter chassis. It's not easy to design them. Okay, it is quite challenging to get very good design. That's why. This company called Gogoro Electric EV, it's produce scooter, which is kind of a very good company. They patented technology we call aerospace aluminum, which means aeroframe aluminum. It's basically aluminum. Just they make it their own process. So the design is basically combination between design and material. So basically, this kind of thing is very interesting to do because there are many EV company, okay, in Indonesia. They're doing a lot of things in things, but basically I'm wondering if they do a lot in this kind of. So that's why the product is not feel good because it's not developed in the good way. So this kind of opportunities open up. So if you would like to make a startup company that work in EV industry, it is something that you can work on. And then the egg hardening process is something that actually things that very interesting to do in the future, or start from now. And then you are talking about the precipitation hardening and things like that, a lot about this in this kind of things, or in this kind of business. Okay, if you have any other question or thing like that, concern, please you can discuss.
Ayo Pak.
Ya, silakan kalau ada pertanyaan.
Untuk materi minggu lalu kan ada tentang korosi. Nah,
Ya.
Untuk korosi pada besi kan bisa menghasilkan Fe2O3, ada yang menghasilkan karat. Nah itu untuk metal lain, apakah bisa ada kemungkinan kayak besi juga Pak yang bisa masukkan Fe2O3?
Ya, perbedaannya adalah seperti di stainless steel. Mungkin sudah ikut ya pelajaran stainless steel. Stainless steel kan dia bagaimana how they are protected from the corrosion. That's why we call it stainless. Is that stainless mean stain mean free from stain, which mean good corrosion resistant, because with this oxide form is actually very stable oxide. Instead of forming iron oxide, as you mentioned, they are forming. This is the oxide that is formed. This is unstable, basically, which means that it's not stable, it's not strong. They are not protected anything. Okay, but if you have a chromium, then you have chromium 2O3. Then this is very stable, which means they're shiny and stable. They are not growing against. It's not grow. It just grow very thin, about nanometer size, and then stop. Then aluminium also behave the same thing. If you have aluminium, they oxidize with oxygen. They form alumina, and they stop growing. Okay, they are stop growing. So which means that this stable oxide is protected your inner metals. So if you have aluminium here, they will form alumina here when this oxidizes with oxygen. This is stable, which means that they are stop growing in some kind of very thin layer, and then they're protected. It's like painting, but they're coming from their inside. So the difference with the iron is that iron form oxide, but they form in the lump. It's not stable. It's not like this is Fe2O3. So that's why it is not stable. It's not stable. That's not strong. So it's keep growing over the time. So that's why it's corrosion. Corrosion is time domains situation that you have all the time oxidation of your metals in forming oxide. Then it's not stabilized, and sometimes it's going. That's why you lost your integrity of material integrity. So it's different with aluminium or stainless steel or titanium. They stop it. Okay, that's the idea, Mas ya. Siapa tadi yang tanya?
Baik Pak.
Ya, terima kasih. Ya, jadi clear enough ya. Yang lain juga. Ini menarik. Tapi sudah ada di code-nya sebenarnya. Tapi bagus untuk kita review sebentar. That's a good thing. Also correlated with ini ya kelas hari ini. Jadi bagaimana kalau aluminium terkorosi nggak? Iya. Nanti korosinya ada dengan masalah kestabilan oksidnya di luar ini. Apakah stabil apa enggak? Biasanya kalau ada impurities di dalamnya dia jadi tidak stabil. Makanya nanti aluminium itu kebanyakan misalnya tidak stabil di sini sedikit, nanti ada pittingnya di sini. Pitting corrosion jadinya dia. Jadi jarang aluminium itu general corrosion. It's mostly local corrosion, pitting corrosion, then become a hole, thing like that. So why? It's because the oxide is quite stable actually. Except that you have something impurities inside the aluminium. For example, you have sulfur, you have Pb, you have zinc inside the aluminium that is make it not stable situation. Okay, I think that's clear enough. Also interesting for me. Also, that's an interesting thing to discuss. Please, you have any other question? Then you can, of course, discuss. We have enough time to do that. So.
Ingin bertanya, Mister.
Ya, please. Ya, silakan. Timothy. Ya.
Izin pakai bahasa Indonesia, Pak.
Ya, silakan.
Karat kan terbentuk karena ada oksidasi, Pak. Apakah ada kemungkinan untuk mengekstrak kembali metal yang sudah teroksidasi itu menjadi metal yang baru, Pak? Jadi semacam menghilangkan O-nya, Pak, oksigennya, Pak.
Bisa. Semua metal memang kan di-develop dari oksid material itu kan. Kalau kita ngomongin besi itu kan dari Fe2O3, jadi dari oksidnya. Aluminium juga dari Al2O3, dari oksidnya. Titanium juga titanium oksida, dari oksidnya. Jadi kita bisa reverse back. Tetapi itulah kenapa ada korosi juga gitu kan ya. Karena aluminium itu is not stable, Fe juga not stable. Basically Apa maksudnya stabil tidak stabil? Maksudnya gini, dia itu lebih suka in natural itu ya, lebih suka atau tendensinya. Nanti kita bahas di thermodynamic of material. Jadi intinya metals would like to stay in their stable state, which is in oxide state. Okay, that's why if you have iron, they are without any energy. Ya, kita nggak perlu energi apapun, langsung dia teroksidasi menjadi Fe23. Karena paling stabil dia Fe23 kan gitu. Then of course you can reverse back. Okay, dengan cara apa? Dengan memberikan energi, ya kan. Entah itu elektrolitik, apa dengan energi panas dan yang lainnya. Jadi bisa. Jadi selalu bisa. Memang itu prosesnya. Jadi nanti kalau misalnya kita punya oksid banyak ya dari Fe23, bisa dikembalikan lagi. Bisa. Mungkin suatu saat ada teknologi seperti itu juga ya untuk membalikan ini. Maksudnya untuk struktur yang sudah intak ya. Sekarang sih teknologinya kan kita menggali Fe23, kemudian kita bawa ke plant, kemudian kita purify di sana. Jadi kita remove oksigennya untuk mendapatkan Fe-nya gitu. Ya, jawabannya bisa.
Baik, Pak. Terima kasih, Pak.
Ya. Okay, then I think that's clear enough. I'm happy that all you understand last previous lecture, which is asynchronous. If you don't understand it still, and then please ask. This easy to ask. You can ask me in email or any WhatsApp or in the group. Also, when we have class like this, you can easily ask any question. Today also quite challenging topic, yeah, but it is easy actually if you understand it. Okay, then we will meet again probably next week if you don't have any laboratory work or next time. Thank you very much for this morning. You have all the slide in the classroom already. Also include for the last week meeting. Thank you very much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Okay, bye everyone.